So to preface this, I want to start off with some context, right? I come from a large family, and my parents come from large families. And everything that generations upon generations of large families have done, on both sides of my families, is hold this philosophy that everything you do must mean something. Everything has to matter. You can't just do things for the sake of doing them, because that's effectively a waste of time. If you're going to do something, you should at least be competent enough to get good at it, or not do it and stop wasting your time and do something that you actually want to do or can actually substantively improve at over time. And that's kind of been the reigning philosophy regardless of whatever skill you develop. If you want to develop a skill, you got to be the best you can at it, right? And go as far as you can feasibly with that skill, right? Now, how does this apply to video games? Well, in my family, we've had a very competitive lifestyle in the sense that we all kind of naturally beef with each other a little bit. We're all of my siblings, really. We've always been very competitively oriented in the sense that it's more of an amicable competition, not an esport competition, like not like the esporty competitive attitude, like I see so many people online confuse it for. I mean, like genuine competitive attitude with just playing to win because such are the rules of the game. The rules of the game stipulate that there is an objective to complete. You play the game to complete the objective. That's how this kind of thing works. That's how any game works. That's how Mario Kart Wii used to work. That's how freeze tag used to work, and that's even how a game like TF2 works. And what I notice a lot in the online sphere of it all, right, is that a lot of people do not enjoy playing to win, or at least they talk as if they don't, right? A lot of people have this idea in their minds that the game should cater to their... How do I put this? I notice in Team Fortress 2 a lot that people have this very difficult time processing just how the game can be played to win, right? Because a lot of the critical aspects of Team Fortress 2 have been more or less ruined by the esporty types who kind of took the game and completely changed it from what it really was back in the days of, before Meet Your Match, before Jungle Inferno, and all those things. And there's a lot of documented history about this, and there's plenty of evidence to support that people just really didn't know what they were doing with the game necessarily. But on that same token, this creates a very visceral reaction to people who... Oh. Almost died there. This creates a very visceral reaction to when people experience the game differently than others prefer. Let me specify a bit. I'm a guy who tends to play this game as seriously as I possibly can. I don't play with the mindset of just goofing around. At least I very much try not to. And even if I am just not exactly turning my brain on, I still want the objective to be somewhat present in my mind. And I say I want, right? Because that is a personal preference. But at the same time, there's kind of an objective level to it where if you're not doing something with the objective in mind, you're not necessarily doing anything conducive to growth in the skills that you would otherwise be practicing. And I'm sorry for the lag, because for some reason my computer is just chugging. The game keeps dipping from anywhere between 90 to 40 frames per second right now. So, constant 60 is simply not being achieved right now. Sorry about that. Anyways, there might be this misunderstanding that I'm having insofar as the conversation around the game. And if that's the case, I really am sorry. But I don't see people use the right words enough when they talk about things like playing casually or competitively. Like, the way I understand things, and you guys can tell me if I'm objectively wrong, or you can tell me if this is just my opinion that I happen to be overblowing as a belief system and that I'm taking it too seriously or something, I've received a lot of fair criticism about my last video, but I've also received some not so fair criticism, and I want to hear all of it. I really do. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. But the way I understand the game to be, and my attitude towards it, and how the conversation works, basically sums up to something like Team Fortress 2 is a game that can be taken much less seriously than other games, because other games take themselves much more seriously than Team Fortress 2 does. TF2 also prioritizes interaction between the players insofar as the many side grade options that the game actually possesses. There's this room for different play styles and, like I said, options, right? The game has plenty of options for you to play however you want to play. And that's kind of both a good thing and a bad thing, but most of the time, it's a good thing. And one of the negative things that kind of comes out of that as a result of, like, maybe just a societal thing, like, and by society I mean kind of the micro society of TF2 itself, right, is that there's a lot of misconception as to what it means to really be casual or competitive. And a lot of it really does come down to just how poorly the e-sportiness of the competitive TF2 scene bled into the nature of the game, and how much it technically perverted the ideals of Team Fortress. But in a way, it didn't, but for the most part, it did. And I see a lot of people compare the e-sporty aspect of competitive TF2 and to something like actual competitive attitudes. And I see people actually think that that's how competitive actually works as a word, and people who play competitively just are playing the game wrong, and they're taking it too seriously, and it's not the appropriate vision. And I sit there, with my experience playing games with a competitive attitude, like an amicable competitive attitude, and I think about that a lot, and it's like, from an honest standpoint, from a rational conversation standpoint, the logic just doesn't line up, right? Because at the same time, people who complain a lot about people treating a game like TF2 competitively will also say that you're free to enjoy the game however you want, and that's kind of the beauty of TF2. But they don't seem to want you to enjoy the game this particular way. And I know that the dialogue surrounding it is kind of dissonant, and there's a lot of viewpoints, and there's a lot of differing opinions, shall we say, that have been bloated into bloated into this belief that really shouldn't be there. That's a level 2. There's this weird idea that because you can take the game more seriously than someone else, that automatically means that you're the villain of the scenario, right? Like, you're the guy who's taking it incorrectly. You're the guy who's playing the game wrong, because TF2 shouldn't be about winning. It should be about having fun. Whatever the heck that means, right? Because inherently there is no logical reasoning for that kind of thing. Team Fortress 2 is a game you can enjoy and have fun with like any other game. But like I said before, I come from the school of thought, and I believe this firmly as a matter of truth, not necessarily as a matter of opinion, that you should take everything you do as seriously as you can. You don't need to become, the #1 esport player in the world at TF2, but you should take the game seriously enough to actually play for the objective that is designed to be achieved and defended from you. The objective isn't your right. It's not owed to you to complete, and the game doesn't owe you any certain experience by having the ability to provide that to you. It's just that a lot of people get kind of whiny when people play the game with a certain framework and experience that doesn't line up with theirs, and there's not a whole lot of room nowadays for an objective conversation about it. And I'm trying to do my best to bring that to people's attention and talk about it more objectively. And I want people to engage in the comments about this. And, vote with your like or dislike. That's what the buttons are there for. And I just kind of wanted to talk about it. It's a very odd thing because most of the time, the experiences, actually no, pretty much all the time, the experiences in this game or this game's sub-communities like source mods or very specific community servers, the best experiences I've had in this game and those mods, right, have been from people who understand that the game can be fun to take lightheartedly enough to not get bent out of shape about, but you can take seriously enough to actually, play with some degree of competency, right? Like, if you were to play a game of, to use a example that I had as a kid, right? Oh my gosh, I missed both shots. How do you do that? To use an example that I had as a kid, if you're playing a game of two-hand touch football with your friends at the park, you're not just there to throw a ball and goof off. You're also there to actually play to win competently, because that's what everybody else is there for too. You're not there to waste each other's time by just idling around in a game, because you could just play, passy ball at that point and it would be fun, but on a very surface level that would effectively mean nothing, because there's no objective being searched for. There's no challenge to overcome. There's no actual point to any of it, like objectively speaking. And a lot of people say, that the point is that there is no point, and that's pretty stupid, especially considering that if somebody else wants there to be a larger point to it all, why are the people who don't want it there owed the experience of not having a point? That sounds really convoluted. I'm sorry. It's just something I observe in TF2 a lot, and I think about how it could apply in the real world, and it doesn't really hold up that well. For example, right? Like, why would I owe someone the experience of playing Team Fortress 2, like, with no care about the outcome, when the instant someone does care about the outcome, it's a crime? I see that a lot, and I really get sick and tired of it. Oh man, I even had the random crit. I get sick and tired of it a lot, because a lot of people think that they're owed this experience of not needing to care about the outcome of something, and then as soon as people do care about it, it's them who are at fault. And I've probably said this a couple times now, and I'm sorry, because I'm really just trying to get my words right here. But I find this very strange level of cognitive dissonance, shall we say, where if the game really wasn't meant to be taken that seriously, then the very reaction of getting mad at somebody who does take it more seriously being so extreme is actually somewhat hypocritical, right? Like, if the game was designed from its outset to not be taken very seriously or informally, right, it would be rather stupid to suggest that it's justifiable to be mad at people who actually do take the game seriously, like with some degree of overall competency and desire for skill. And, it's weird, because inherently there's nothing wrong with desiring to get better at the video game, right? And anyone who says otherwise doesn't know what they're talking about. I don't know how I avoided that random crit, goodness. But, and the reason why they don't know what they're talking about is because oh dear. Got him. Okay, get out of here. No, how am I stuck? I'm stuck in the wall. What? I got stuck in the wall. That's insane. Okay. And obviously you don't need to take it super duper seriously and harshly, right? Like people will take the game to varying degrees of serious, but eventually the point of a game with an objective in the first place is to actually complete the objective. And if that wasn't the case, then the objective simply shouldn't be there. And I seriously question the integrity of the game design and the personal integrity of the game developers if they thought it was a good idea to include objectives that weren't actually meant to be, achieved. Because who creates a goal and then desires that the goal not be achieved, right? Like, that's completely backwards. And I don't just feel this way. I really think that this should be, self-evident. And I don't know why people think like this is something that's a debatable topic, because it's this weird, like, pseudo gaming hedonism, right? Where people want to be justified in just perpetually being obsessed, I suppose. Okay, here's this weird concept, right, that I was talking with my dad about, actually, in relation to all of this. He says that there's this degree of obsession versus satisfaction, where people are constantly obsessed over having just good old casual games, and there's the satisfaction in a job well done when you at least strive for an objective, right? Like, people are satisfied when a game is a good game, and you can confidently say, you know, GG's, that was a well-played match, right? Like, anybody who's actually played a game of, like, football in a sports park with their friends knows this. And there's, and I think about it, like, and I would try to apply these principles to a game of flag football or something, right? Or two-hand touch football. And especially in a team sport, right, where, you know, you're designed to work together as a cohesive unit to achieve a certain objective. That's rather just discourteous to the nature of the objective if you don't play to achieve it, right? Like in a game of, you know, two-hand touch football or flag football, you want to actually play to win, at least somewhat, because that's kind of what you're there to do. Yes, it's there to pass the time, but it's also there because it's a good thing to do, you know? And why wouldn't you play hard? You know, why wouldn't you play to win? It makes no sense why fun and playing to win can just simply not coexist in the minds of these people. I don't understand it. I really don't. Because to believe in something like that, you'd have to believe in the idea that... Oh my gosh. Because to believe in something like that, you'd have to believe that most things you do simply have no purpose. And that's a really weird thing to believe. At a certain point, too, you gotta really question whether or not people care about anything at all when they think about things like this. Because when, you know, and this is from my school of thought again, but if you're going to do something and not see it through to its eventual, like, logical conclusion, essentially, you know, then why would you bother doing it, right? Like, why? Because at that point there is, like, legitimately no reason to do anything. It's just kind of there to be... Oh my gosh, how did that not kill him? Oh, I got the assist, that's okay. Because if you took any other aspect of life like that, you wind up with a life that's very sad and unfulfilled. Like, if you took relationships like that, like, if you're just dating women or men for the status points, right? And not actually to see, hey, you know, maybe this person is someone I could, you know, live with for the rest of my life. Maybe this person is someone I could, you know, see myself marrying and having a family with. You know, the logical end that we as humans are literally built for. To pretend as though that's not the logical end of it, first of all, is absurd. But also, it's this weird notion where, you know, if that's actually what you think, then why are you dating at all? Maybe just don't do anything romantic if you're not going to at least try to see it through to its end. Because that's, at that point, you're just stringing the other person along for no good reason. And it's inherently unfulfilling if your end goal is simply not to achieve the end goal. Like, the whole point of us being together as people and having relationships is to see if we're suitable for each other. You know, that's, to a degree, that's how any friendship works. And if you took your job like that, you'd get fired on the spot because you simply weren't, you know, working up to the standard that was expected of you, and you weren't doing your duties, you know? And I don't know why video games are to be treated like this, but there seems to be this idea that because it's something that you can treat less significantly, I suppose, than any other... Why aren't you coming after me, bro? I guess there's been this thought that's prevailed in a lot of modern gaming cultures, philosophies, that because it can be taken less seriously, it should be, because to impose that you would take something more seriously than others is selfish of you and stupid and generally not very generous to the other people involved. And it comes off, like I said earlier, as owing the people who think this way the experience to be lax. And I'm sorry, but I don't owe you a gosh darn thing, you know, especially the idea that you get to just loaf, you know. I don't owe you the experience of just not caring about a video game, because I care, and I shouldn't be vilified for caring more than you. Like, frankly, that's a skill issue on your part, that you can't bring yourself to take something as seriously as I do. And I don't know why people don't take things seriously. I don't know why this happens at all. But it does, and it's really upsetting. And it's funny because when I ask people why they think that this is like the right way to think, they typically tend to avoid the argument that it's the right way to think, because generally these people don't have a very good concept of truth or right and wrong, but they more so just want to do whatever they want to do without much consequence. And the only real argument I've ever heard is that when people come home from a long day of work, they just want to chillax and play, you know, their favorite game and just chill and not think about it because it's been a long day. And that's fine, but at the same time, again, you're not owed that experience. People who also play the game don't owe you the experience of being chillax or anything like that. Like, that's not how life works. You don't get whatever you want. And people could probably be like, oh yeah, I know that, but it still sucks. And it's like, why does it suck? Like, why should people be guilted into giving you this experience that is inherently against the design of the thing, right? Like, an objective to complete should be sought after. And if you're not playing a game with the intention of doing that, it's not very apparent where your priorities lie. I don't tend to trust people who play games, quote unquote, just to have fun, because they wind up being very aggressive and nasty when they talk about playing just to play. In my head, right, and again, this is my school of thought, this is how I've grown up, but I really do believe that there is some objective level of truth to this. And it's that there's no real reason to think this way when the opposite can be just as rewarding, and maybe even more so, because playing just for fun, it does appease the short-term satisfaction that we as people want for our emotions. But playing to win is a very delayed gratification but long-term benefit for the people actually playing. And I'm consistently shocked by how many people there actually are out there who think it's a good idea to just not care about what happens, or at least to pretend not to care, and then act as if it's somehow everybody else's fault for playing the team sport the way that's meant to be played. Like, and I'm talking about TF2 specifically now at this point, right? But the idea that I'm not supposed to take the game very seriously and it was designed to not be taken seriously is just repulsive to me, because I do take it seriously. And I want to take it seriously because that's how value is actually objectively gleaned from the experience. There's no value to be had in an experience that you genuinely can't appreciate to its fullest, and I want to experience it to its fullest, and I shouldn't owe people this ridiculous pseudo benefit of not caring about something because they want to reserve the right not to care. If they want to reserve the right not to care, they can simply not play if they think they're being, you know, if they think their rights are being infringed upon, or that their play style is being negated, or that their fun is being stamped on. You know, they can go play something else if that's the case, because nobody owes anyone else an experience. And I'm not saying, again, and I'm not saying that people owe me the experience that I seek from the game. You know, I'm not saying that people owe me playing a play-to-win attitude, right? I'm not saying that at all, because that's obviously a very unrealistic expectation, in the same way that expecting people to just play for fun, as it were, is unrealistic. And I couldn't care less about friendlies at the end of the day. They suck insofar as they don't play the game the way it's designed, and they don't play the game with any real critical desire to actually achieve the goals of the game. They're just there to experience something in the Team Fortress 2 medium that is inherently against its design and just isn't appropriate for the context that the game has been designed for the longest time to actually facilitate. But I do take it personal when people take their problems personally with people and then say that it's that I'm experiencing things wrong. And it's like, you have no evidence to support the idea that I'm playing the game wrong just because I take it more seriously than you. But I do think there is some evidence to suggest that perhaps I'm playing the game better in tune to the way the game was designed. Oh my gosh. Get rid of the stickies, get rid of the stickies. No. I like to think that I actually am the one who's playing the game with the game in mind and not for my own personal gratification. Obviously, I get personal gratification out of playing the game the way it was intended, but that's secondary to the game being well designed. And, you know, I see a lot of people try to argue about the game's objective well-being or goodness from this perspective, and that's really sucky and frankly really stupid, because they try to make these objective arguments as to the state of the game from this very emotional, subjective approach. And that's really disappointing, because the game frankly deserves much better arguments for its goodness than that. And it doesn't get that because people like this are the majority, or at least the vocal majority of the player base. I think there's a non-vocal majority of the player base that thinks very similarly to me, but I'm not completely sure either, because there's no way to measure that, statistically speaking. I guess I'm just disappointed. This is more so of a personal rant than anything, but I wanted to try and make as objective of an argument as I could for the things I talk about and believe in, because I want people to know where I come from in matters like this, and I want to stoke good, honest conversations about this kind of thing. So if people actually do have something to contribute to the conversation and they want to talk as objectively as possible, please do so. I love hearing your guys' comments, I love reading them, and I love responding to them. Just try to make it as objective as you can, because I want this conversation to be honest. I want it to be philosophically appropriate, and I don't want it to just stem from a place of emotion and butthurt that you can't play the game because sweats go burr. I want something much more substantive and intrinsically valuable than that. So, yeah. Try to keep the professionalism up, and I will see you guys... Oh, hi. I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.